Hello, Wellness Warriors. We're here today with Holly from Agreeable Gray, and her story, not the typical path to carnivore. I'm so happy to talk to her. I'm going to let her jump right in. So, Holly, start wherever you want.
Thank you, Violet. First of all, thank you so much for letting me tell my story. And the reason I want to get it out there is it does not follow the traditional script of eating the carnivore diet and magically starting to see things drop by the wayside one by one. However, that is inherent in my story. And I do have an entire page of successes of what the carnivore journey has done for me so far and where I expect it to go, as well as the struggle that I'm currently in and have been in for about the past year. So I'm going to start with March 1st of 2023 because that is the day that I actively decided, no holds barred, I'm going to jump into the carnivore journey and I'm going to do this and come what may because I am desperate. At that point, I was 2 weeks out of a hospitalization that hit me in mid-February of 2023, where I was tested, poked, prodded, and it was determined that I had pretty much severe gastritis, inflammation in the lower part of my esophagus, GERD, silent reflux, regular reflux. Everything was inflamed from tip to tail, a bit of diverticula, and just basically my digestion was screwed up and not working. So I was discharged from the hospital in late February and handed a script for a proton pump inhibitor of Protontics, 40 milligrams twice a day. And see, you have enough, have a nice life, and we will follow up with you once you call this other doctor's number so you can swallow a camera and we can see what's going on with your small intestine. I passed on that. March 1st, I'd already had a scheduled appointment ready to see a naturopath due to the gastric issues. I was having trouble that really started in November of 2022 when I bottomed out and my gastric issues became chronic. I had been on the downhill slide for many years, but just kept normalizing it. Life was busy. There were things to do. And I just kept chugging along and chugging along. I retired from the school district in September of 2021 because I no longer had the energy to keep going. A few COVID shots and 3 times of getting COVID, or twice at that point, and I was just done. I had no energy left. I could not sustain a 5-day week anymore, and my digestion continued to deteriorate. So I started in, when I retired from the school district, it was September of 2021. I'd gotten one of those Renfro scales that tracks everything and you can put in your measurements and numbers, and used it one time. August of 2021, I was 190 pounds. Now, I was always like 105 pounds through high school, or less than 100 pounds through high school, 100 to 105, 106 through college. And when I got pregnant with my twins when I was age 28, I was about 115 to 117. So when I topped off in my pregnancy, it was like 192 pounds. Eventually lost much of that weight with Weight Watchers, got down to 138, 142, somewhere around there. Then went off of Weight Watchers and spent the better part of the next decade slowly watching the weight creep on up again. And then the pandemic hit, the lockdown, all of the sitting, doing much of nothing. Well, a lot of work, but a lot of seated work, cerebral work, leaving me completely energyless and mindless at the end of the day to do any kind of physical activity. I found myself becoming very wired and tired. So wired and tired, overworked, underplay, absolutely miserable, and getting ready to retire and finding out that, oh my gosh, I went all the way back up to my pregnancy weight. And this time I don't have a 10-pound placenta and 2 big babies to blame it on. It was just lifestyle and getting lazy and, falling off of the priority list. So I started really paying attention to my weight, and I was at 190 pounds. By October, I was about 185 pounds. So great job. 3 months to lose 5 pounds, right? I was starting to try. All I did in the beginning was just give myself permission to make better choices. And that's kind of where I began.
What were the better choices that you were making, just so we are clear on what that means to you?
Instead of a Snickers bar, maybe a protein bar. Instead of fries and cheese, Greek salad. Instead of a pizza, maybe I would kind of like make it myself with a little bit of bread and some cheese and some sauce, something that I could kind of track and monitor the calories. Started incorporating more vegetables, more beans, and then eventually more raw vegetables. And that's kind of where I got in trouble, because the sicker I became, the more I adjusted my diet. But I really was not yet making the connection that the foods that I was eating were not helping, because I was trying to cut more fat and cut more meat and eat more vegetables and then go a little bit more raw. And I wasn't really too conscious of this, Violet. I wasn't putting a lot of brain power or effort into it. And until I sat down and kind of went through the notes, I didn't realize to the extent that I was actively messing up my gut by getting more fiber and more cruciferous veggies and even more raw through the winter, which did not make me a happy camper, but I was already miserable. So what are you going to do? You have to try something. So I was 178 pounds in July of 2022, and I thought, okay, that's not too bad. I lost a good, what is that, 178? Oh, that's not even that great. That's like, what, 12 pounds in a year. That's not stellar, but I was taking it as the win, because I was defeated already before I started.
And before that, your weight was going up.
Before that, my weight was going up, and now my weight's going down. So I'm
Yeah.
taking it as a win, even though it's so painfully slow. And I didn't want to go back to Weight Watchers, because that was just a lot of pressure. And I thought, you know what, so I was kind of like doing my pre-Weight Watchers. I have to do something to get my brain on board, to get my resistance to buy into doing something new, because I was so rooted and stuck in those old patterns. So I thought, well, I'm not ready for Weight Watchers, but I'll be Weight Watchers-ish. I won't bother writing down anything or tracking, but it's a way for me to kind of step into that space. So that's what I was thinking along those lines. I was eating a lot of spinach, beets, salads, potatoes, sauerkraut, beans, some cheese, some meat, lots of ginger ale. That's my weakness. That's my chief addiction. That's the one that's very difficult to kick to the side. Oh, of course, chocolate. Then I started noticing that restaurant foods were making me ill, because by this time I, retired from my career, but I picked up a part-time retail job. It was super easy. I was alone most of the time, and I could order from restaurants. So the Chinese place, all of a sudden, that's making me sick. Okay, a local diner, the good standby in town, all of a sudden, that's making me sick. So I thought, okay, well, what's the Greek place? That everything's making me sick, and I'm thinking, what's going on? But again, I'm not really conscious of what I'm noticing.
What kind of sick is it? Like, what are we noticing? Like, what's happening?
With all of the gastric issues, basically what was happening is my entire digestive system had ceased to function. So symptoms included the classic GERD symptoms, where you're always regurgitating. I also had the silent reflux that was going on, which I eventually figured out what that was called. Uh, uh, some gastroparesis, although I was not formally diagnosed with it. The rate that it took food to go through my body and the amount of time between I ingested a food and reacted to that food was, on the average, 48 hours, and in some cases a little bit longer. So, and again, that journey took months and months and months and months to just figure out, by paying attention and kind of deleting other areas of my life, because I was too ill to really do anything else other than concentrate on getting better.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you would eat something, and then because I don't eat out every single day, I can tell that within 48 hours, like that food had to have been what made me sick, because everything else I'm eating is the same.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like that. But then once I ended up hospitalized and got out of the hospital, and decided to start playing around with carnivore, I kept trying to add other foods in as well as a basis.
Oh, so you're
And so,
carnivore while this is happening?
well, no, the weight loss was not carnivore. I started carnivore March 1st of 2023,
March
sick as I
1st
was.
of
March 20,
2023, this year.
this year. Yeah. So
Okay.
9 months so far. Okay.
Okay.
So all of the gut issues were exacerbated, began and exacerbated prior to eating carnivore. And then I started eating carnivore and I still had all of these gastro issues to work through. And that's where the carnivore healing part comes in.
So what I'm trying to figure out in the history here that you're giving us is when you start to notice restaurants are impacting me, I'm still doing normal diet or am I
No, I still was not doing normal diet. I was
what's the diet?
thinking, well, when I started noticing that the restaurants were bothering me, I just stopped going to restaurants and I started preparing my own food. So my normal diet was I ate a lot of refried beans because you could top them with tomatoes and a little dollop of sour cream and a sprinkle of cheese and drown them in hot sauce. And mind you, I wasn't balancing that with rice like you're supposed to because I had given up grains months before since grains were really bothering me and grains would just stick in my stomach, not digest. Doesn't matter if I had digestive enzymes or not. Grains were just shutting everything down.
Okay. So what I'm understanding then, if I'm getting this right, at this point in time, I've already been told that there's something happening. I have this prescription for the proton pump inhibitors, and I'm supposed to go back at some point, and I'm eating whatever I can keep down, get through me without having huge reactions.
And that was pretty much nothing except carnivore foods.
Okay,
That's
so
the
that's how I figured that out. Like
mhm.
that, so I am not quite carnivore yet, but I'm figuring out that I can manage meat and eggs and stuff like that.
Yes. Yes. And that and exact as a matter of fact, I think my first meal that I consumed without being poked, prodded, stabbed, squeezed, whatever term you want to use for torture from the inside out, I felt it. And I wish I would have like logged all of it, like this food hits me, and I could do a diagram of it, but I didn't, and that's past, and I won't get that information back. But I was able to tell exactly which food was causing which pain in which area of the body.
Wow.
And so once I started figuring out that, oh my gosh, just about everything that I'm eating is hurting me, I got to try something else. So I was constantly watching videos and researching articles and digging into stuff. And carnivore kept creeping up. And by the time I bottomed out in the hospital and got out of the hospital and saw the naturopath, I decided at the beginning of March that that's it. I have to I have to step into the carnivore space. So I made myself a plate of bacon and eggs. And that was the first meal that did not hurt me going through. Now, I wouldn't say that I was fat adapted. I was inflamed from tip to tail. I did see one picture from the endoscopy when they looked in my stomach, and there was a sore in there. So I can assume that there might have been some sores elsewhere. There was a time in January where anytime I went to the toilet, I could smell blood, even though no blood was coming out. That freaked me out. Okay. That was just that was strange. Back in January of 2022, when I was on my veggie kick, I thought, well, I'm going to go organic, and I bought two organic zucchinis, and I was so proud of myself because in the morning before I went to work, I sautéed everything and had this great stir fry. And when I heated up for lunch and I tried to eat it, I'm like, what is that taste? Every bite of zucchini tasted like a chemical to me. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. It's supposed to be an organic vegetable. And I didn't know if it was the plastic that it was wrapped in because it was in one of the, not even cellophane, but the thick plastic, like what a sticky bun comes in. And I thought, well, maybe it absorbed the smells of the plastic. I found out later that Sometimes they can use more pesticides with organics. I didn't know that at the time, but there was something about this organic zucchini that just and I even washed it, you know what I mean? But I didn't take the skin off. So I thought, well, all right, I don't know what's going on, but it took weeks for that to end up getting out of my system. And so I just constantly smelled this strange chemical coming out in my urine, coming out in my feces, coming out in my sweat. And it was absolutely disgusting. So I had that all going on and everything sort of converged. So bacon and eggs, they were my favorite. Started off with a hamburger patty because I thought, you know what, there's no way I'm going to take the proton pump inhibitor. I brought that script home, did a little bit more research on it, and realized there's a rebound effect when you get off of it, and I'm already miserable. So let me just stick it out and continue the misery. And it was a couple of weeks later, the supplements that the naturopath ordered for me came in. And so I started to be able to do a better job of digesting food because I had these digestive enzymes that I now had access to. Mind you, I could not even tolerate apple cider vinegar. So it was
Because it
a
burned?
problem. Oh, it would burn. Yeah, it would burn everything all the way down, even diluted. You know, one capful and 12 ounces of water was just still not enough of a dilution. So it took a few months to be able to have any kind of normalcy of digestion come back online. And so in the meantime, uh, I lost, let's see. So July of 2022, I was 178. I mentioned I was, relatively still unconscious. From July of 22 to November of 2022, I lost like another 10 pounds, 168. So when I went into the hospital, I was like 148 because between December and January, I lost another 20 pounds, Violet. And that was basically because I just couldn't eat anything. There was a week in December after Christmas where I ended up doing like a 7-day fast just because nothing felt good. Uh, I was a hot mess. So still pushing everything out of my mind. And when I went into the hospital, I was 148 pounds. I came out 4 days later at 162 pounds. Whatever was in that IV, whatever they were pumping into my body, put weight on me, that amount of weight in 4 days. And it took 2 weeks to get all of that fluid out of my system. So I was not really happy about that at all. I was mad, just to put it lightly. I was very mad.
I'm curious to know for the 7-day fast that you did strictly because you had no choice. But while you were fasting, how did you feel?
Miserable, sick, because I was fasting out of desperation. I literally had run out of foods to eat. And this was before I, like I'd heard about carnivore. I knew about carnivore, but it was not sinking into my consciousness, if that makes any sense. I would run across it and just immediately slam the garage door on it, like, nope, that's crazy. And it wasn't until I literally ran out of all foods to eat that I thought, you know what? I really need to look at this because I'm not even getting 500 calories in a day. And so when I started carnivore, I still was barely hitting 500 calories a day. But at least I knew that through those calories, my body was getting some kind of nutrition, some dense nutrition, which I was not getting, munching on, you know, veggies dipped in ranch. It just wasn't working. So, and the raw wasn't working. So, uh, yeah, I got out of that hospital and saw the naturopath and realized, and didn't even realize then how long of a journey back to health that this was actually going to be. But it felt so good, Violet. It felt so good to know that I'm putting good nutrition into my body. And yet at the same time, I can't say everything was hunky dory and perfect because I have a constellation of symptoms going on. And one of them is gallstones, which was, diagnosed and then re-diagnosed when I was diagnosed in January and then re-diagnosed when I hit the hospital in February. But due to the gastritis and everything, I was not a good candidate for surgery. So it's like, take your gallstones and see you later. So, not being really fat adapted and jumping into carnivore just because anything else that I was eating was making me ill, I did have some trouble in the beginning with getting fat adapted and not consuming enough fat. Because even though I'm willingly stepping into this carnivore space, I still have that programming that I need to bust through. And that was really hard for me. I really, really struggled with that programming.
So you're eating lean cuts of meat? That's what that means?
Not so much lean cuts of meat, but I'd sop up the grease. Like don't eat the hamburger patty with all the grease and cut off the fat. I wasn't doing those things, but I was still fat phobic, very fat phobic. Um, and so it took a little bit of coaxing to step into being able to give myself permission to consume the fat and then also allow my body to consume the fat. So now I use that extra grease and it doesn't hurt me and it's easy to digest and it doesn't make me nauseous. But there was a time between March and I'm going to say up until about a month ago. So we're saying 8 months where if I accidentally got a little extra drop of fat, I would feel that nausea. And so, even with carnivore, I had to be careful in the beginning that if I overdid it on the fat or snacked on too much bacon, that fat would trigger some nausea. Now, that's abating, but I struggled with that for longer than possibly the average person. So I'm just throwing that out there. Nausea, for me, I knew that I was getting too much fat when it triggered the nausea. How did I figure that out? By hurting myself over and over and over again until I made the connection. That's how. Self-experimentation.
We have to keep in mind that you've lived so much nausea that feeling any kind of nausea, it's a throwback, right? It's not. So, because I find that interesting, one of the things that I've noticed is that, for example, fatty meats like ribs or pork belly, like those kind of things that are like super high in fat, my signal that I've had enough is that kind of queasy, kind of like, oh, okay. But it doesn't freak me out. It's just like when I feel it's like, okay, my body's telling me I had enough. Right. And I could have maybe gotten through 3/4 of a rack or something. And then it's like, okay, vital stop. And I've heard other doctors, and I'm trying to remember which doctor was talk about the same thing. I want to say Chaffee, but I'm not 100% sure if it was him, but talk about this idea that your body will just give you a signal of like, kind of like, ugh, when you've overeaten meat, where for carbs, that doesn't happen.
No,
And it's
no,
interesting to me because your body was reacting so poorly to the carbs, but you
Mhm.
weren't getting that, ugh, stop eating it.
No.
But for the healthy food, we do get the signal. And I'm not really sure what that means. I'm just kind of saying it out loud because I find it interesting that you're saying the same thing that I've lived. And I've heard other doctors say it's so hard to overeat fat because your body gives you this ick feeling.
Now, because I'm a perfectionist, Violet, and I'm really hard on myself, my brain would immediately go to, you messed up. You overdid it. Shame on
Oh.
you. Okay. So I have had to deal with my self talk with that. Uh, that, like, oh, I was trying so hard and I messed up today. And so I have to reel myself in and say, you know what? It's a journey and it's not a mistake. It's gathering of new information. And now that you have that information that you didn't have previously, now you have more awareness and now you can do more with that information and with that awareness. But initially it triggered that trauma response of constantly dealing with being ill and wanting so desperately to be healthy. And like, that's the goal. I'm either going to get healthy or die trying, because this is enough is enough already. I can't go into the next half of my life, or less than half of my life, if I don't do this right, uh, deteriorating. I'm not ready to deteriorate. I just retired from public school teaching. I want to live life, not simply exist for 20 years until it's time to check out. I don't want to do that. So yeah, that triggered, I had to deal with that trauma response from the nausea. Like,
I love that you just added that because it's helping us to see something else. Data is so important. Wellness Warrior, I have a favor to ask you. In editing this video, I realized that sharing our stories is what will help new people to understand that keto actually works. So if you have improved your health, mental health, or weight through eating healthy keto, please look in the description. There's a form to fill out so that we can do an interview and you can share your story. I want to help more people, and I think that together we can help people to understand that keto is more than a diet. It's a way of life that gives you your life back. I'm not a special snowflake. I know that you also have lived amazing things. So let's change this together. The form's below. Data is so important. Because I knew that piece of information before I started having that reaction, because I didn't start my life eating this much meat, or my this new part of my life eating this much meat. I started keto, right? So because I didn't start here, by the time it was happening to me, I already had that data. Oh, that's normal because my body's telling me stop eating. But if you had that data, maybe you wouldn't have mentally beat yourself up, because it's the same thing like beating myself up for getting hungry. Like, it doesn't make sense. We don't do that. We know, oh, hungry signals mean I'm hungry. That signal is supposed to apparently mean that you've had enough. Now, we also get it when you need to evacuate something, right?
mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
they're both positive things for our health, because if I need to evacuate, I should evacuate.
And without having that knowledge, Violet, which I didn't at the time, eventually I gained that information. Uh, but I just thought, oh no, now what am I doing wrong? And it wasn't that I was doing anything wrong. I was just overdoing something right, which leads to a wrong.
Well, but it's not even a wrong. I'm kind of hoping that you're going to see from this, it's not a wrong. It's a signal. You had enough, and that's all it means. You
And it
had
was a
enough.
good signal. Yeah.
It's a
And
good
now I
signal.
know. And
Exactly.
now I know what my limit is. Don't eat 6 pieces of bacon, stop at 3.5. You just figure it out. So some other things I've been doing, I've been checking into polyvagal theory. I really haven't dug as deeply into that as I need to. Um, just because I have so many other things going on, but I know that that's something on my list that probably will assist me very much, especially as the next part of the story comes out. Hypnotherapy, had to crawl back to my hypnotherapist. I tried regular therapy back in my 20s, early 30s, and it was slow going. And hypnotherapy is much quicker. And I was so depleted by the time I got to April of 23. I was so depleted of my own ability to handle any kind of stress and just keep my act together, and realizing, wow, I'm really at the bottom of the bottom. I have a long way to go to heal, and I just needed to get some of my own spirit back. So that was very helpful. Went to an acupuncturist, because if you're going to kitchen sink something, throw everything at it. My chiropractor, which 2 adjustments pretty much cured the hiatal hernia and gave me the signal of understanding of when that's starting to pop out, so I know how to massage it back down. And also, eating carnivore is strengthening the muscles, so I figured as the fat goes away and the abs get stronger, then maybe it'll keep that in place more, maybe it'll close that hole. One can dream, right? But I'm not suffering with the hideous effects of, you feel your stomach popping up through that hole in your diaphragm, which is really a gross feeling. And it just you just don't feel good about being human when that's happening. So I know how to get that at bay. And I've been able to, in the last couple of months, start exercising more, like walking for 45 or 50 minutes before my limbs start to feel like, okay, it's time to sit down and you're done. And then maybe later in the day, another 20 or 25-minute walk, and I'm okay. So that's a huge improvement from not being able to listen to anything, watch anything, or think about anything, because just in so much discomfort, you can't take any pain medicine, and there's just nothing to do but experience your misery. And hope that tomorrow is a better day. So there were some days that were like that. Now, all the while eating carnivore through the summer of 2023, I still had gallbladder issues. I still had that stabbing upper right quadrant pain where it would hurt to sleep on the right side. Uh, but also eating carnivore helped slow down my weight loss because I was just losing way too fast. It was feeling very uncomfortable. And I'm like, I just want to slow the weight loss down to our good friend Weight Watchers, pound a week. Pound a week. That's comfortable. More than that, it just feels too freakish. It's just happening too fast. And so that was amazing. And that was a good tell for me, Violet, that things are coming back on track because I wasn't losing weight because I wasn't eating. Now, I'm getting the calories that my body needs to feel satisfied. And now I'm able to tap into that so much better. I'm feeling so much better, but it was rocky for a while there. Now, a lot less pain in this section. And the naturopath has just started me on a protocol for a liver detox. So I've added in those herbs as well. And that's been very helpful. I had some bubbles in my urine. And thanks to doing this particular detox, those I'm not seeing those anymore. And getting ready to order the tinctures for a mold detox because recently it's come up that I am suffering with a touch of the candida or candida. Sorry, I always pronounce it wrong. The candida. And I just recently tested positive for excessive pyrroles, which is
What is that?
a molecule. A pyrrole is a molecule that some bodies make in excess. And if you look it up, there's a great article on Healthline about pyrroles. And pyrroles can mimic or they can cause symptoms that are really scary in terms of mental health, negative mental health effects. It can cause someone to present as bipolar or schizophrenic, depressed, anxious, worried, along with I kid you not, at least a 2-page list of things that can go wrong with the pyrroles. So mine aren't too bad. I'm in the moderate range. I'm over the line. So it's playing a role, but it's not the chief role. And then on the other hand, I also tested positive for the mycotoxins from mold exposure, which I did have a bad mold exposure back in like 1990 and a chemical exposure a year or two earlier in like 88, which set me up for disaster pretty much through the rest of my 20s through the 90s. So now that was coming back to roost because I live in an old house and it's to the point where the house, everything when I bought the property in 2006, that was still okay in 2006. Now, here we are in 2023, and it needs to be thrown away and rehabbed. And yeah, I didn't feel like doing that right now because I don't have the mental wherewithal to put all of that together. It's a huge, overwhelming project. Plus, I need to go out and earn more money to cash flow this because I'm not playing the credit game, not with today's economy. We're just not going to do that. So that has to be on pause. So I'm not home. I left town and I'm out of state and I'm in a warmer climate and it's very nice. And I'm going to figure out how I can finagle to stay out of winter and out of mold until the warm weather hits in the spring and I'll go back to my northern climate and hopefully I'm feeling better and stronger with more vim and vigor and more mental capacity to just make a plan and figure that out. So that's where I'm at right now. It took months to be able to tolerate the apple cider vinegar again, Violet, and now I can. Over the summer, I was feeling so fantastic when I went on vacation. I was eating 3 meals a day, all carnivore, brought my own food. Halfway through, I stubbed my toe, I broke it, and as I recovered through that, I could feel my healing happening in 12-hour increments, which was so amazing. And I attribute that to eating carnivore because I don't think that would have happened if I were munching on raw veggies.
That's actually amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I was amazed at it too. And they said a 2-week healing. Oh, after 7 days, I was able to drive again, and it was my driving foot. Now, I had had a broken leg back in 2009. I have a plate and 7 screws. Well, 6 now because one was going straight through my ankle. The broken toe jiggled the screw in the ankle. Plus, I lost a lot of soft tissue because I've been on this weight loss journey. So the screw was sticking out to the point where I couldn't wear shoes. So for 2 months, I'm walking around in shower shoes and slippers, and finally had that screw taken out in late October. And now that's all healing up. And I can tell a little bit with the changes in the bariatric pressure. You know, like when you break a bone, you can, oh, my bones ache. Yeah, but I know that will go away because I've had other minor breaks and bigger breaks, and that does eventually go away once the bone is healed, and that's going away faster. I mean, it aggravates me a little bit with the weather changes, but not to the point where I need to take a pain pill, or I don't have to take a Tylenol or an Advil or anything. I just notice it, and then it's okay and it's gone. And I know that's going to become a lot stronger. So, yeah, I've just been exercising that foot. And since I'm lighter and I'm now stronger from eating carnivore food, wow, I'm rediscovering muscles that I haven't felt or stretched in decades. My squats are getting deeper. I can stand on my tippy toes more. I'm dancing a little every day just to kind of get grooving and feeling good and sweating. And it feels amazing to have the energy to do those things rather than, oh, I got to conserve my energy, not spend too much of it because, oh, bedtime's a long way away, which is the energy that I used to be in. So another thing that I really feel I have to bring up is going through this liver detox and also about to embark on the mycotoxin detox because, again, with some of these things that happened over the summer and some other things reshuffling in my personal life, I hit the skids emotionally and struggling far more with emotional processing and my ability to handle stress and learning more about the idea that that's directly related to the mycotoxins and the negative effect that the mold sensitivity has on the brain. And then when you start to detox, you might bring out a few other symptoms from that. So another good reason for leaving home and leaving my normal environment and my normal stressors behind, because I've been popping off on people out of anger, over emoting over minuscule things, and then wondering, like, why? Why am I doing that? Why am I so dysregulated? And so some of it has to do with things that I'm processing through in my personal life. But one of the biggest things that I'm processing through in my personal life is getting my health back on track, turning this Titanic around so that in my later years, I can have strength and vitality, flexibility, agility, clear mind, clear intention, clear path, and actually have the energy to participate in life again, which I have not had for far too long. So all of these things are just making me feel icky. And so when it comes to emotions, I have to ask myself first, uh, is this my ego overreacting? Have I been exposed to a chemical or some other toxin that's like making me emote some kind of way? Because on my past journey, I know that that is the case. So I can react to almost anything. So if I'm having an emotional reaction, I have to first pin down, like, was it something I ate? Was it something I breathed? Was it something I thought? Or is it just like, why? I was walking on the beach yesterday. Nobody is on this beach, Violet. The beach is empty. And I'm walking along, I'm feeling absolutely fantastic. And then I take a step and I step straight into sadness. I'm like, why am I sad all of a sudden? Like, what? Did I like accidentally step on a hole that has a turtle in it? Like, why did somebody leave their sadness here? Or is there something else going on? And this is something from my brain playing tricks on me physiologically. And then 10 steps later, I'm not sad anymore. I'm like, so weird things like that happen that I'm also trying to get to the bottom of. Like, what's,
It's interesting how, first of all, when we were feeling horrible, and then we start to feel good, when we don't feel good, how much more we notice it.
every little jot of everything that I'm breathing, touching, putting in my mouth, like, what is it and when is it? And, Violet, there are certain foods that I can eat right now and feel fantastic, but it's not going to punish me until 2 days from now. So it's easy to cheat in the moment, but when you're that ill and you realize, oh, the payment's coming later. It's like that big credit card purchase. You're like, oh, it's a new promotion. I don't have to pay anything for 3 months. And then 3 months comes, you're like, what did I do? I'm never doing that again. So paying attention has been it's been the most helpful tool, but also it's easy to go into overdrive on that if you're the type of individual that is prone to go into overdrive and overdo it, which I am.
I'm also curious right now about the stability piece of this puzzle because, like, for example, on a standard diet, we're eating like 7 times a day. How often do you eat?
I'll go through my routine with you. It is exceptionally unexciting. All right, I start off in the morning with my dose of levothyroxine because about 12 years ago I had to kill my thyroid because it went hyper, and after 9 years and three hyper spikes and my life having no control, I did the radioactive iodine and killed my thyroid function. So I take that and then I wait a couple of hours and I mix up all of my herbs that I'm doing for my liver detox. And I put that into the smallest amount of applesauce I can get away with just because I'm not swallowing a dozen pills. I pull them apart and make this little witchy concoction and then spoon that down. And then I have a yogurt with berries a little bit later, whole fat yogurt, the whole 2%, and some berries. Because now I can tolerate them. For a while there, I couldn't tolerate berries at all. And then I was only able to tolerate them like every 4 days and then every 3 days. And now I'm able to tolerate them every day. And on the advice of the functional medicine doctor I'm working with, get some berries. Get that. And it has been helpful for cleaning out the liver and so forth. Then I do a little while later, I'll do my main meal with vitamins, either bacon and eggs and a hamburger patty, or a ribeye and some bacon, or a ribeye and some eggs. I've been indulging in ribeyes lately because, I've been really miserable for most of 2023. And then back into 2022. So as long as the piggy bank says it's okay, I have ribeyes in my budget. I'm spending about $100 a week on food, so it's not that bad. Uh, and then sometimes I'll have a snack or a second meal later in the day. It just depends on if I'm hungry or not, or how full I feel. Um, if I can, if, lately I've been asking myself, are you really hungry, or do you just feel like eating? And that's a new place for me to be, Violet. That's definitely a new place for me to uh, be able to focus and think, wow, am I really hungry? If I'm hungry, go ahead and make a whole meal. My nemesis is that I cannot keep around are nuts because I absolutely love them, but they're prone to molding. And so they're not, it's not something I should be consuming. It is a good go-to keto cheat, I like to call, because if I do cheat, I try to keep it keto, some cheese and some nuts and maybe some dried fruit, one of those Sargento things if you're out and about and you're absolutely desperate, some beef jerky, things like that. Uh, I found out I absolutely have to have the correct dose of magnesium for my body, which makes me officially old. And it's like nothing happens without the correct dose of magnesium, just saying. So if you're struggling, do some research on the magnesium. It really helped me tremendously. I mean, without magnesium, with magnesium, the world is perfect. So, and electrolytes. I had no idea my electrolytes were so off the chart when I started. So I make sure that I have my electrolytes every day. Now, I am not an Element fan. I've never tried Element. I'm afraid to try Element. I'm very, very sensitive to artificial sweeteners. So I have to look for things that are maybe sweetened with a little xylitol or some sucralose or something that's closer to the sugar family. If it's closer to the artificial sugar family, I immediately I get a coating on my tongue and a coating in my esophagus, and it feels like I'm all slammed up and tightened up in here. And then it feels like I'm coated with paint from my neck down to my stomach. And I can't tolerate those at all.
Oh, so when you said earlier that your one problem was ginger ale, that was regular ginger ale.
Which I'm certain has contributed to the fatty liver because I've never been a big drinker in terms of alcohol consumption, but Pepsi, Coke, and ginger ale, oh yeah, anytime,
And
anytime.
was that
I
one
can
of the
polish
rare?
off a liter a day. A liter, like a liter, a 2 liter bottle would only last me 2 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That I shouldn't say wow. I probably was doing the same.
No, it is a wow. It's like a but at the time it's not a wow. At the time when you're going through it, you're just like, I have that ginger ale. It's refreshing and it's cool and it's great over ice. And when you have gastric issues already, that ginger is pretty potent and it helps settle things down. So unwittingly and unconsciously, I was consuming more and more ginger ale and therefore contributing to the fatty liver because that's how full of high fructose corn syrup. I found foods that I can eat, and that's it. Beef, butter, bacon, eggs. I'm by the coast, so shrimp. I've really been enjoying shrimp. The last time I ate shrimp was 2013, and I struggled to digest that shrimp. And I've just been tearing up the shrimp, and I've had no troubles with it whatsoever. So I'm excited about that. But that's it. That's it. I have a small handful of foods. I cook them in the air fryer. You'll never see me doing a cooking show because it's not that exciting. And I'm very happy with it, with my diet. And I can take it anywhere. It's easy.
What's interesting to me too is that like it's a small handful of fruit. It's a small amount of foods that you're eating, but you enjoy them.
I do. Yes, I do enjoy them. I feel very satisfied. I love the berries and yogurt because that's in a bowl. Even, the detox herbs, even though I'm sacrificing some carbs to the applesauce, apples do have malic acid and that's good for opening up the bile. So that's my excuse. Okay. I'm sticking to it. And, and that way I can eat it as like a mash instead of, oh my God, I gotta swallow these pills. I just, Violet, I just hit my wall with pill swallowing. So I thought anything that I can do to not swallow pills, I'm gonna try to get around not swallowing pills.
So we started the carnivore-ish part of it later, but the initial reason that you were changing the way you were eating at all starts way back after you have your kids to lose weight. We do to Weight Watchers. And just one little piece of the puzzle I'm still not sure about is that period of time that you were in the hospital before you started to really have trouble with food. What catalyzed that? Do we know? Was
Oh, well, no, I was really I started having trouble with food in November of 2022. In November of 2022 was when it became chronic. Prior to November of 2022, going back, I don't even know how long, Violet, let's say a couple of decades. Once in a blue moon, I'd have an episode where I get completely constipated, and then that makes me dizzy and lightheaded, like I'm going to pass out because it's very painful. And then the blessed event happens. And then eventually that gives way to diarrhea. We're talking in a matter of hours. And then maybe a few hours later, if I overconsumed food, I might actually vomit. Now, that would happen so infrequently that one could easily write it off as the stomach flu. And then over the years, that stomach flu went from once every year and a half or two to once a year to once every 6 months to once every 3 months, every 2 months, once a month until November of 2022 when it bottomed out and I became chronic. And then I have to wonder, here's something else I found out. The candida sets up the perfect environment for H. pylori. Now, the naturopath tested me for that, and I came up positive on both a breath test and a stool test for H. pylori. And I did some of my own reading and found out about the candida connection to the H. pylori. So I was also on a protocol through the summer to help get that H. pylori calmed down. And now I'm not, because the H. pylori triggers all of the GERD symptoms and all of those other symptoms, but our mainstream medical profession will not test for it. Now, maybe you can beg and get your doctor to test for it, but when I told my PCP, my primary care physician, about testing positive for H. pylori through the naturopath, she said, "You can't rely on those tests. They're not accurate." And I was like, but I'm sick. And so, but the proton pump inhibitor treats the symptoms that are caused by the H. pylori, and the H. pylori thrives in the candida environment, which was slowly getting worse from all of the sugar that I was consuming. But because I had this high-powered, high-fast lifestyle of go, 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 sleep and eat on the fly if you're lucky to get those two things in on a daily basis in adequate amounts, and just keep burning the candle at both ends and keep on trucking. What do you do? That's life. That's what we did. We just keep going until you die, and keep until you hit the wall. And I hit that wall.
So the proton pump inhibitor, though, what is it supposed to be doing?
The proton pump inhibitor knocks out all of the acid producing spots in your entire digestive system.
Okay, so can I and H. pylori is able to proliferate? Why? What's because of the sugar?
H. pylori proliferates in a candida environment. They kind of go hand in hand.
But is that happening in the stomach?
I think it's happening throughout the system. I don't know the deep details of that. I just have a rudimentary knowledge of someone who's
My frustration, the reason I'm asking that question, my frustration is if the proton pump inhibitor is de- decreasing acid production, of course you're going to keep having GERD because your stomach is.
Yes, but you're not, no, but you're not going to get the symptoms of it because, but, over time, that's going to destroy the digestion as well. And you're only supposed to be on that for 8 weeks. That's the recommendation. But the medical profession takes people off of that script and really does not have an exit strategy. There's no exit strategy for getting off the PPI. Also, because if you do try to get off of it, you have a nasty, gnarly rebound effect. All of that acid that you were suppressing is now just going to come back and hit you full force. And I don't know if it's because now you don't have it anymore and you were used to not having those nasty acidic symptoms, and now you stop taking the pill and those symptoms come back. So I thought, well, if I was tempted to take the pill to get some minor relief, but I took one pill, the one they gave me in the hospital, and the next day I woke up with a splitting headache on the whole left side of my head. I don't get headaches, Violet. Of all the nasty things that have happened to me in my life, being prone to headaches has not been one of them. And so that really scared me.
I guess that was the luckiest headache you ever had in your life.
That's the luckiest headache I ever had. Now, here's the interesting thing. So my naturopath suggested, well, why don't you just try the HR2 or H2 blocker, whatever it's called, the over-the-counter stuff, which doesn't delete all of your acid-producing centers, but it works on a specific one. So you're going to get some reduction, but not complete. That's why people end up on the proton pump inhibitors prescribed by their doctor, because the over-the-counter stuff isn't working for them anymore. So I would take that, and I would notice like spots of headache on the left side. I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, I'm done with these things. I'm just gonna suffer because I don't need a headache. And then there was also that rebound effect. When it wore off, I would feel even worse. So I was just bouncing myself all over the place, trying to manage these symptoms.
This is part of the problem of our system. It's so focused on symptom reduction rather than solving the actual underlying cause.
It makes me so angry, Violet.
It's aggravating because I'm sitting here listening to you talk about two different professionals telling you to take something that will lower your stomach acid when your stomach is supposed to be acidic.
Mhm.
And no matter what you do, no matter what problem you actually have in life, lowering
Mhm.
stomach acid causes more problems. Like this is known.
It is known. Now I was in a quandary because I knew all of that. I knew that. And so back when I was eating, transitioning to more raw veggies and trying to eat more clean after I bottomed out in November 2022. Oh, you bet. Apple cider vinegar was on the list of things to do, but guess what it was doing to me? It was just making me worse, but I didn't know. I didn't know. So I understood about that. I had that knowledge and I was wondering like, well, why isn't that work? Why is nothing working? Probably because I had open sores inside because I was that inflamed and that unbalanced and over the edge.
If the professionals that I'm working with are not telling me and helping me to understand that eating carbohydrates is actually part of what's disrupting my digestive tract,
Yes. Hmm.
then I think acidifying my stomach with apple cider vinegar is going to change something. But if I'm still, I can take that. But if I'm
Hmm.
still eating a bunch of carbs,
Hmm.
the balance is not going to be there.
It'll never be there.
It'll never be
It'll,
there. Yeah.
it'll never be there. It'll never
Versus
be
versus the opposite, which is what you did.
there.
Take the
Hmm.
carbs out, and your stomach acidified itself.
It did. Now it took many months.
Of course.
March, April, May, June.
But it's also the healing that has to happen.
By July, I didn't have to take the digestive enzymes anymore. And I, and even now, since July up until now, I still use the apple cider vinegar, but only in a pinch. I don't need it every meal. Whereas prior, I really needed that extra support. So I had too much acid, not enough acid, and the balance did not exist. And I just had to slog through the misery for a time, cross my fingers, pray to Jesus, hope everything works out, stay the course, do the protocol, trust in the power of time.
It's also trust in the power of asking the right questions and knowing that I can
Mm.
figure it out. I feel like the interesting thing about you and I is that the answers that they were giving us that didn't make sense, we were like, that doesn't make, like, you're going to tell me to keep taking a medication that makes my head feel like it's going to explode. No, thank you. There has to be
Oh,
another answer, right? And I feel
yeah.
like how many people just say the doctor must be right.
I don't understand that. I legitimately, Violet, I do not understand that. And maybe it's just because of my lived experiences in life where I've had to listen to my body or I had to figure things out. Uh, I don't understand that. I mean, why would you not want a copy of your labs? Why wouldn't you want to Google every term? I don't understand that.
But I also feel like it's why would you not listen to the fact that you started taking what that medication, or in my case, the medication I took, and your body feels worse.
Hmm.
So I love to say I'm so happy that I have violet syndrome. Anything I ingest that doesn't work for me, I have pain,
Yes.
immediate.
Hmm.
And that's great because it stops me from taking something for too long that's causing, and the same thing happened for you. You took it, headache, not taking that again. You took something else, little headache, not taking that again. And I feel like it's unfortunate that so many people in this process get weight gain.
Hmm.
Weight gain doesn't push us hard enough.
I have a theory about that, Violet. Some people, like myself, like you, we get feedback. Our bodies give us feedback. Somewhere along the line, we figured out how to tap into that feedback. Okay. And therefore, we've learned how to trust ourselves. We've learned how to trust the feedback that our body is giving us. I don't think that everybody starts in that place. And so there are people that step into whatever it is, whether it's veganism, whether it's carnivore, whether it's anything in between or anything that they're throwing their lives into. Some people want the checklist. What boxes do I need to tick off and in what order so that I can do this right so I can get the results that everybody else is getting? Instead of thinking, well, gee, my weight loss seems to have stalled. Did I add in something that I wasn't like completely consciously aware that I added? Like maybe a little too much cheese. I've been using cheese to slow down my weight loss. Thank God, because I love cheese. But I can't have it like I can't live on it. You know what I mean? I can't live on it. It's an add-on. It's an extra. If I feel like I'm going in the wrong direction, I know I gotta lay off the cheese for a few days or just do lion diet for 3 days. Man, I drop 5 pounds in a heartbeat, put it back on. But there's that female up and down, even though I'm postmenopausal, there's still the weight fluctuations and there's still the moods that move with the moon thing that happens for some reason, even though supposedly I'm not producing the hormones that should happen. But again, I'm paying attention, I'm noticing these things. And I think some people get so hung up on, I'm doing the beef, butter, and bacon egg challenge for 30 days and I have to do this for. No, you don't, hon. No, you don't. You can, or I'm going to fast today. Well, maybe today's not the day you need to fast. Maybe tomorrow is the day you need to fast. I can't plan a fast. I fast when I've been fueling for days and I'm caught up. And I'm just like, am I hungry? No, I'm not hungry. So somewhere around June, I think it was, I did like a 2.5 day fast. But I didn't plan it, Violet. I just didn't need to eat because I was fueled up. And that, and then like things went haywire since then. But, to get back to that place, that was an amazing place of health. It was summertime. The sun was shining. I was getting my vitamin D. I was feeling really super, super good before I broke my toe. And I was on fire. I hit that carnivore fire. Now I want to get back to that. So I had a taste of what it's like, but now I'm in this new part of the journey, and it might be another half a year before I drop the yogurt and drop the berries and drop the applesauce and don't have need for the liver detox any longer and the gallstones magically disappeared or cut themselves in half or whatever they're going to do. Um, and to just be feeling better and stronger and healthier. So I'm carnivore-ish right now. I'm not full carnivore. In June, when I was full carnivore, but it was also stressful on my liver, but everything was stressful on the liver as well. So I was feeling amazing, but I still felt like I'm carrying a basketball over here under my rib cage.
Can I also point out? So there's two things I want to say. Is first of all, like the stress on your liver. I think sometimes, and depends on the medical person you're speaking with, they will talk about what you're doing today as if that's causing the issue that you're having today. But I've been 50 years eating the wrong thing. So it's not, I feel like to say that the current carnivore-ish lifestyle that you're living is adding to that stress. No, it's probably just letting the stress show. Because if I was eating the poor foods, this would be hurting so much that I couldn't notice that my liver is struggling until I'm hospitalized for liver, right? So that's the first thing that I want to just put out there because I think sometimes, like, I've heard so many times, I shouldn't even say sometimes, I've heard so many times where doctors will blame keto or carnivore for someone's health issue that arises because they've been doing keto or carnivore for a minute compared to how long they've been alive.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So people start the carnivore diet maybe after a number of months or a year, whatever.
They have
These
the heart
other
attack or
things
whatever.
come up to the surface, and then the dietary choices get blamed.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So that's
No, I
that's
can
one.
totally see that happening.
I,
Yeah.
I definitely know it happened for me. So like I know it happens for other people. That's one thing. This is like it's something to be conscious of. But the other thing I want to just also talk about is how when you're talking about like the way that you're eating and feeling so much better, and then like people be so strict on like I have to do this or I have to do that. What's interesting to me is that if I'm eating well and I'm feeling good, and then I notice this food or that food isn't working for me, but it's keto friendly, why do we feel like we need to try to shoehorn something into our diet that isn't working? So, one of the reasons I really try my best not to tell people what I eat is because it doesn't matter.
You're absolutely right.
Because maybe, like, if I just go with what you said earlier, you are able to put tomatoes on your beans at one point when you were talking about that you were putting tomatoes and whatever. I can't eat tomatoes.
Oh, I would never touch a tomato with a 10-foot pole
Not
ever
today.
again. Not
Right.
today. No, I've
But
had my fill of
but I can
tomatoes.
say that my spouse still eats tomatoes.
Yeah.
He's fine. Like he's fine with tomatoes. He doesn't have the reaction that I have to tomatoes. I think that there's this idea that we should be able to tolerate things that no we don't. No we don't. We don't have to tolerate anything if it's hurting our body.
My therapist and I talk frequently about the dangers of the word should.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
we should all delete the word should from our vocabulary. Do it or don't do it. It's either good or it's not good, or it's somewhere in between. But when we constrain ourselves into the should, that just puts too much pressure. Oh, I should. No, I can make a choice in this direction, or I can make a choice in that direction. And either choice is going to come with its own rewards and consequences. It's just better to delete the should. No shoulds. Self reflection. What's your body telling you to do? Okay, maybe everybody's doing beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and maybe you realize butter's not your friend, at least not this week or this month or this season. You know,
And that's the other thing too. You just made an interesting point, is that sometimes there will be seasons where I'm not able to tolerate something and then I can, or I was doing really well on something and then I couldn't. And for sure, again, for me, that was an interesting realization that I've had where I was able to use coconut oil and all of a sudden can't use it.
example from my own life, I started off the carnivore journey with bacon and eggs and a hamburger patty. Okay. And I tried to cook a roast and I couldn't eat it. And I couldn't tolerate the bone broth. It was too rich. And because I'd been consuming so many liquids, and especially in the hospital, like the idea of just drinking a broth, I couldn't do it. It hurt. And we're talking bone broth, like the best thing in the world. Couldn't do it. And and then I cooked a steak and I couldn't eat the steak because back in March, April, my gut was so messed up that unless it was already ground up, I couldn't have it. Now I'm the opposite. All I want is that ruminant meat. I just want that ribeye. And the piggy bank told me I have to supplement with some hamburger, but it's just not the same. But yeah, I could not handle ruminant meat. Couldn't eat it. Couldn't eat a stew. Couldn't eat bone broth. Couldn't eat a ribeye for months. So I just stuck to the mince.
You're helping me to think also about this other piece of the puzzle, which is our emotional component, right? Like that mental health piece where I might physiologically have a reaction because psychologically it's reminding me of a bad time in my life.
Not only that, you might actually be having a psychological reaction to what you put in your body physiologically. And that's freaking me out. I mean, but I find not freaking me out, that's the wrong terminology. I find it absolutely awe striking and amazing that something, apples, if I eat an apple, I get so stinking happy. There's like whatever it is in the apple, it goes straight to my brain and it lights something up.
Yeah, you have a dopamine hit.
Dopamine hit. Paint fumes, like if I decide I want to change the wall color, oh, forget it. I can't sleep in that room for days or even a week, even if it's a low VOC. Paint fumes make me speed. I just won't sleep for a week if you expose me to paint.
That's actually reminding me of this other thing, which is that like we ignore the cephalic response that we have to sugar. And so going back to that whole idea of sweeteners, like sometimes we're eating things that are zero carb, but they're sweet. Our body's acting like if we just had sugar. And your insulin is getting spiked and all these things are happening. And it's so sad to me because I have people who are truly trying to do better for themselves. And they have this one thing in there that's just every time they have it, messing with their body. And then they're chasing again and they don't understand why. So there's so much that connection between mental and physical and knowing that it's a connection that we cannot ignore because if we ignore it, we will make mistakes. And the food companies kind of know about that, right? And they know that we ignore it.
The thing that makes me so angry is the high fructose corn syrup. I just,
It all makes me angry.
it all makes me angry, but that one is a little bit higher up on the list.
So
It's
you're
crazy.
out of town right now.
I am, yeah.
The reason I was asking is I was trying to figure out if there was any social implications for what you're doing right now. But luckily for you, since you're traveling, there's really no social implications in terms of stopping you from eating what you want and being as healthy in your meals as you want to be.
I live alone. I'm single. I'm grandma. So whatever I do, nobody cares. Nobody cares, except the fact that I'm not coming home for Christmas. And like, I've got 4 people really mad at me for that. But logistically, it's just going to put me over the edge with stress. So I'm going to have a low key Christmas with my family member in Florida. So still family, but my back home crowd, they're a little upset about that. As far as food goes, no one in my family is really the food police. So nobody really cares what anybody else is doing, and nor do they want to hear about it. And if I do try to bring it up, you can see the eyes glaze over and the invisible wall comes down. And the next thing you know, they're telling you how wonderful avocados are. And I'm like, you're right. Avocados are fabulous. I can't eat them because they're like sandpaper, but yeah, they're great and they're a good color.
Okay, I'm kind of curious about your perception of food, food and nutrition, since you've started eating this way. And we're saying carnivore because that's what you're aiming at. But like, what has changed in your view of food and nutrition?
Oh my gosh, everything, everything. I boiled it down for you, Violet. Meat is for food, plants are for medicine. And that's, Dr. Chafee says plants are trying to kill you. They are. They're also trying to heal you. But if you overdo the healing plants, you're going to kick your healing into the wrong direction as well. So I have a greatly renewed respect for plants like I have never had before. I will never take a plant, a fruit, or a vegetable for granted ever again. And I will never use them non medicinally either,
Because you can overdose.
because you can overdose.
I love
So
that.
celery juice is great and a little spinach might not hurt. But you know what? If you're overdoing it and you're dosing yourself every single day, now that healing food has turned into a punishing food and you're going to hurt yourself with it. Just like overdosing on medicine that comes in a bottle with the white top and your name on it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meat is for food, plants are for medicine.
If you could debunk one myth about carnivore, what would it be and why?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question. Debunking one myth. Can you help me out and give me a myth and I'll debunk it for you? Do you have a myth?
Okay, so like for example, if you eat all that meat, you're just gonna have a heart attack.
Oh, I'd send them to Rick.
And then what?
I'd send them to Rick, Charger Mopar. I'd send them to Rick from Miami. And just like, no, 40 years. Since I started eating meat, my heart is stronger because my heart is a muscle and that muscle needs to be fed. And what better way than feeding the heart with meat? Not only that, all of my muscles are being fed. So I can walk longer and faster and farther, and I can lift more pounds than I used to be able to lift. Therefore, I can better take care of myself because I don't have to ask people, hey, can you lift this thing for me that's only 20 pounds? Can do it myself. So meat causes heart attacks. I thought heart attacks were caused by blockage in arteries, and I thought that blockages were caused by the carbs and the sugar, because when you ingest carbs and sugars, your liver has to turn it into fat. And if you don't use all of those calories, it's going to store that fat. But if you eat meat, you're bypassing that. I can't remember what it's called, gluconeogenesis process. You're bypassing all of that plus the storage, and you're going straight to using the fuel. So it's actually safer to eat the fat in the first place because your body's going to use it, and then you're not going to store it. And if you're not having any carbs and sugar, then you're not going to build up that plaque in your arteries. Did I get that right? Yeah, I think that's close enough.
What kind of things have been solved by eating healthy?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, Violet, because even though I'm still in the middle of this slog and, I'm not quite back to being full carnivore because I'm unpacking these issues, I did sit down and make a list. So I thought the best way to do it would be to start at the top of my head and work my way down. So the first thing on my list is I no longer have hair falling out. And that is amazing because about a year ago, it was coming out in clumps. And even up until a few months ago, it was still coming out, but less clumps. And now my hair is not falling out. And that is absolutely amazing. There's a female pattern baldness that, kind of runs in the family. That's filled in. My floaters in my eyes are greatly reduced. Even though they're still there, they're greatly reduced. Almost zero sinus issues, except from time to time, but it's no longer daily. My teeth are smooth and clean. They feel stronger. In my jaw, I have no more bleeding gums. My eyebrows are filling in. The dark circles under my eyes are still there, but they're about halfway reduced. So if you can imagine what they looked like before. Ugh. I have increased lung capacity. I can walk up a hill and tell a story for like 10 minutes. I can walk and not get winded for up to an hour. No more silent reflux hitting me in the back of my throat. No more hiatal hernia. No more acid reflux. Zero joint pain. And I mean zero joint pain. I had a little bit of joint pain on Sunday after Thanksgiving because I ate mashed potatoes and that sweet potato pie casserole, and I only had a couple tablespoons of each, and it didn't hit me until Sunday, and I woke up with crazy, excruciating joint pain in joints that I didn't even know I had. So that was interesting. But then that went away, and no more joint pain. Over the summer, I had no sunburn. Now, I wasn't in the sun, working like a lumberjack. But being in the sun for an hour, sunbathing, and not have to worry about putting on sunscreen and realizing at the end of that hour, you're not on your way to the hospital for a shot of Benadryl because you got sun poisoning. Yeah. I can pop out of bed in the morning. I'm not laying there going, oh, I got to get up. No, I wake up and I'm like, I'm awake. Now what do I do? Of course, trying to start my day without the coffee ritual has been difficult, but now I'm able to kind of like get myself up and moving without coffee. But for months and months and months on end, I was stuck. I can pop out of a chair. I can elegantly stand up from the floor. I'm able to tolerate exercise again, like being in the pool, walking, dancing, stretching. I'm not ready for high intensity training yet, maybe in another year, but that's way more exercising than I've been able to do for a long time. My knees are getting stronger. My squats are getting deeper. Sometimes I feel like I want to just skip down the street like a little kid. I have so much energy. Carnivore has allowed me to slow down my weight loss while at the same time maintaining that weight loss so I can get closer to my goal. It's easy to manage and maintain. Grocery shopping is just so flippin' easy. I'm in, I'm out. I get the same things all the time. I know exactly what I'm going for. So there's less mental stress around food. It's so easy to manage and maintain. I can now digest food without the need for apple cider vinegar at every meal, and I no longer require digestive enzymes. My upper right quadrant pain and discomfort has been reduced by 85%, and that's still on its way down as we get this liver detox going and get that bile flowing and get everything situated there. And I'm happier. I'm way happier, except for the emotions that are being triggered from the detoxing and what I'm dealing with the mycotoxins. But I think that's a pretty amazing list. I'm very, very happy with that. And I know that more things will be added to that list and I'll just become stronger and more vibrant. And once I get rid of all of this brain fog, I might actually be able to sit down and learn how to edit and up my channel a little bit. But until then, you're just going to have to put up with the crappy audio and no editing. So
Well, I have to say the audio is pretty good right now. So
I bought a fancy microphone.
okay, cool.
So that helped.
It's amazing that so many things have improved for you. And it seems like a relatively short amount of time because you only really fully started carnivore 9 months ago.
That's true.
So that's inspiring for a lot of people because there is this idea that I'm going to start and it's going to take so long. First of all, not that you're saying that your weight loss is where you want it to be, but that's not the reason that you're doing it. You're doing it because it's healthier. So, what I hope that we're going to get from this conversation is that if you eat right, your body will regulate its weight, which is what's happening for you.
Yes, which has happened to other people. So I'm very much inspired by that. I thought my original goal weight was going to be like 135 because with Weight Watchers, I got down to 138. I'm at 120. And, in some ways I look gaunt and pale and obviously wrinkled because I used to carry a lot more weight. You can see all the wrinkles. But what are you going to do? I'm more interested in health. And I know that the sagging in my face, I know eventually that will start to tone up. But remember, I was starting at a really rocky bottom of rock bottom. So I have to be patient with the process.
No, but your achievements already are inspirational because like you've gotten your life back. You're doing stuff and happily doing stuff, which is the goal, right? We want to enjoy our health. That's what we want. That's the point of being here if we're not enjoying ourselves. So I feel like you're just showing everybody this is doable. Give yourself the time to do it.
And listen to your body. Above all, trust what your body is telling you. Learn how to listen to your body. Pay attention because the only person who can tap into what you need is you. Your doctor, and this is the way I had to start thinking about it, Violet, that any doctor or other professional I go to, they're on my team, but I'm the team leader of this body. They are there to help me and not the other way around. I do not exist to serve the doctor. The doctor exists to help me heal. The doctor can give me the suggestions. The doctor can provide the right direction. The doctor can give me the tools. Now, I'm talking about a functional medicine doctor here exclusively, not my Western medicine doctor. That's a whole other conversation. That's just insane.
But I also think that you're pointing out something that's really important for us to understand, which is that the doctor is there to help us along our journey, which means that we need to be willing to tell them what's going on with us and push it. I feel like so often we'll say, oh, this is happening. And if the doctor either doesn't catch on or poo poos it, we go along with what they're saying. And I think that that can be a really huge mistake.
That is the biggest mistake that anyone can make. If you know something is going on in your body, be a pit bull. Don't give up. Make them hate you. Be the squeaky wheel. Because, I always tell everyone in my family, I'm like, when you're sick and you have to go to the mainstream doctor, exaggerate. This is where your acting ability comes in. Maybe you're feeling your illness is a 7. And you go, and it's 10. I'm miserable. Like, you just got, like when I went to the hospital, I'm like, I'm not going to downplay this. I'm not leaving until I get seen, and if I have to be dramatic and, overplay it a little bit, then that's what you have to do. You really have to sometimes be forceful or you're not going to get heard. And sometimes you have to be a little bit pushy. And if you're not, you're not going to get your needs met. You're just not in the mainstream medicine. So I have feelings about that, Violet. I have lots of feelings about that. Advocate for yourself. Stick up for yourself and listen to your own body. Because at the end of the day, what are we doing this for? We're not eating carnivore to win some kind of contest. We're not eating carnivore to be in some kind of special club. Many of us ended up here out of sheer desperation and wished we would have ended up here decades ago. We would have had a better life. We would have had better lives. But it's not too late to start now. So take care of yourself. Nobody else is going to. No one else is going to take care of you the way you can take care of you. And if you don't take care of you, don't expect anybody else to step up to the plate because the doctor, they're doctoring. It's your job to fix yourself and use what the doctor or the expert or anyone in the medical community, the doctors on YouTube, they're giving out the information. What you do with that information, now you're into the self-testing.
I couldn't have said it better. Wellness Warrior, I hope you heard that because I couldn't have said it better.
Okay.
No, that's excellent. I probably could keep talking, but this has been great. Where can people find you? What's going on? Where can people find you?
I have a channel. It's called Agreeable Gray. My channel, I started it in July when I bottomed out with cognitive dissonance over eating carnivore. So, if you want to see a grown woman like cry and wipe her nose and sniffle and snuffle and just like lose her mind. Yeah, because you can see my mental health, the struggles with my mental health. It's all over my face in the videos. I just needed a place to pour out my anxiety and also kind of track my journey. So I only do like a monthly update. So I just want to get my story out there. And so it's a place to throw my story, and maybe some other people will watch it too.
That's terrific. So I'm going to definitely put that in the description below so people can find it. So, Wellness Warriors, this was an amazing conversation. I hope you got a lot out of it. And if you're finally ready to start keto or carnivore, click on the link that's beside us here and we can get you started.